Hello and welcome. This is another edition of Africa Business Reports with me, Komla Dumont. This month, we bring you a special focus on Africa's energy sector. Energy has always been a big focus for us here on Africa Business Reports. And with oil and gas security such a big issue these days, we're bringing you another look at the major developments around the continent. Pumping up the energy levels, Ghana races to boost its gas industry. Can Uganda's biggest hydroelectric plants really end the country's power shortages? Stepping on the gas, Ethiopia's biofuel car. All that and more in this special edition of Africa Business Report. The world's thirst for oil and gas seems to have no limits these days. Demand and prices are high, so news of any discovery anywhere in Africa is such big news. In Ghana, commercial quantities of oil and gas have been discovered. How will that boost the economy? Sedemofori has been to the oil town of Takoradi and brings us this report.
Over there is Ghana's Cape 3-point oil rig, and it's around this well that much of Ghana's dreams of becoming an oil boom country is founded. It has proven reserves of over 600 million barrels of oil, and the IMF estimates that Ghana could make somewhere close to $20 billion by 2030. But what does all that mean for the local people of Takoradi?
This is the town of Takoradi. It used to be the hub of Ghana's economy. The discovery of oil off its coast is fueling hopes of a renaissance. And it is easy to see why. An influx of businesses, cash and workers have turned the center of town into a thriving, hectic place. A far cry from how it was just a few years ago. But you have to head out of town to see the full impact of developments here.
This part of Takoradi is called Esupon, and further down in the valley you find an estate development that has emerged only recently as a result of the oil find here. Now the vast stretches of land around it have all been cleared for further development in this area.
The main hope of many people is jobs. Unemployment has cast a long shadow, and those shut out from the economic development aren't just hoping for work, but careers.
Since the oil came, right now the youth are so happy because we are expecting more employment in our region. Takoradi is right now an eye-catcher to the world. We are expecting that Takoradi is going to be a bigger city as compared to Accra. So we are expecting more employment and also more social amenities, more schools, improve our hospitals, and also more jobs as usual.
But for others, the reality is less appetizing. They say oil is pushing up the cost of living.
Everything, clothes, food. Now, even if you want to rent a house, you need to pay more because it's oil town. So a one room that is being shared for like 50 is now 100. Everything has gone up, up, up. But we're not feeling it in our pocket, but everything is now high. But yeah, I don't really feel it. I haven't had any oil money.
The impact of oil is being felt far beyond the shores of Takoradi. The capital, Accra, is experiencing a building boom.
It may interest you to know that 5 years ago, this entire area was covered in bush. Now see what we have here. Over 400 new homes are being built, specially targeted at young professionals, especially those belonging to the middle-income brackets. And in a very short while, these homes will be ready for the taking. And it's typical of the sort of structure springing up all over Accra, and it's testimony to the oil boom that Ghana has been promised.
This present facility, Deauville Estates, was developed in 2010.
And across town, property developers like Joseph Adu are putting up more and more developments like this one, where homes cost between $56,000 and $450,000. That's out of the reach of many people.
The huge activity that we've seen has been the past 2 years. So what I'm saying is that, yes, there's speculation in the market because of the new oil found well, without a doubt. However, there's a real fundamental points that are pushing the upward rise in the interest or in the ability to afford real estate in Ghana. It is just not speculation.
Others are less sanguine and believe oil-fueled price increases can't be sustained in an economy that only achieved middle-income status earlier this year.
I think that prices are not realistic at the moment, and therefore It's actually driving a lot of people backwards, driving a lot of people, discouraging a lot of investors who want to come into Ghana to do business. And so, comparatively between last year and this year, business has gone down a little bit because of the overpricing of properties in Ghana.
Back in Takoradi, ordinary people wait for the signs that the country's oil wealth will make a real change to their lives. The future of generations to come could well be at stake. Sedemufuri, Africa Business Report, Takoradi, Ghana.
Without a doubt, Africa is of increasing importance in the global energy map, and a lot of the big multinationals are doing business on the continent. But what about the local talents, the young upstarts that are ready to challenge the big boys? My colleague Alice Muthengi has been speaking to Osman Shahensha of one such company, Afrin.
The growth in reserves in Africa has been faster over the past 20 years than any other region of the world, and it's projected to be faster for the next 20 years than any other region of the world. So we think Africa is actually, there's a huge opportunity for oil and gas. West Africa is much more well developed from an oil perspective, but East Africa has had relatively little experience, and we think that will change as more companies become involved and activity picks up.
How is your company different from the rest of the other foreign oil companies that work in Africa?
When we established the company, we set it up with a very clear vision to be an indigenous company on the ground in Africa. And so, for example, most of our staff are local from the particular country. We work very closely with the governments, with the national oil companies, and we try to really portray ourselves and to behave as an indigenous company as far as possible.
In the countries that you work in, I'm sure you give back. But I wonder how that sits, with the interests of your shareholders, because at the end of the day, you're a business and you need to make profits.
Well, I mean, I think our view is obviously to grow our business. In order to grow our business, we need to be profitable, and by doing that, we can employ more people, and we can expand our activities. We can hire more services. We can contract with more Nigerian entities. And that has an overall linkage to the greater Nigerian economy.
Now, one of your key markets is Nigeria. How have Nigerians themselves benefited from your presence there?
I think one of the very, very encouraging signs that we see in a number of countries in Africa, and we're seeing it in Nigeria and in Angola, we're seeing it in Ghana, we're seeing it in parts of East Africa, is the development of an indigenous sector. We're seeing the development of small local companies, often working in partnership with independents such as ourselves. And that's a relatively new phenomenon that's sprung up, I would say, in the past few years. And I think that, in a sense, will be the greatest way for African countries to participate in their own natural resource patrimony.
And that story brings us to the end of part one of this edition of Africa Business Reports, this month with a special focus on energy. Still to come, can a huge hydroelectric project in Uganda move that country's economy to the next level? Stay with us. Welcome back. This is part two of Africa Business Report, this month with a special focus on Africa's energy sector. Still to come, harnessing the power of the sun, bringing electricity to rural Malawi. But first, Uganda's economy has been on the rise for some time now, but everyone knows that to move to the next level, the country needs a consistent power supply. And that's what they're expecting when the Bujagali hydroelectric power plant is complete. I went to the construction site, paid them a visit to see how things are going. This is the mighty River Nile, one of the most powerful rivers in the world. And for centuries, the people of this continent have depended on the Nile for their livelihood, fishing and agriculture and things like that. And the Nile River has gained brand new significance. Take a look at this project. This massive thing you see in front of you is the Bujagali hydroelectric project, which is expected to change the fortunes of Uganda entirely. I'm here with one of the directors of the project, Kevin Kariuki. Great to have you on Africa Business Report. How important is this project to Uganda?
This project is a 250 megawatt project. It will effectively double the country's generation capacity and supplant very expensive thermal generation, and in the process significantly reduce the cost of generation in this country, and in due course promote the country's economic activities by providing a cheap and affordable source of power that will go a long way in increasing access to electrification in this country, whose current electrification rate is only about 10%.
But in terms of economic growth, what impact will it have?
A few years back, when there was load shedding, the economy shrunk by at least 1.5% per annum. So I think the corollary is that this project will be huge in terms of promoting the country's economic growth and promote increased employment, job creation, and make Uganda a more competitive destination for the manufacturing base.
I've heard it said, I don't know if it's true, can you confirm for me whether this is actually the biggest construction project in sub-Saharan Africa?
I believe it is the largest privately financed hydropower project in Africa. Within about 3 to 4 years, this will provide enough power for the country's power needs for about 3 to 4 years. And thereafter, the country will have to plan for other sources of generation.
What about the smaller people, the people I saw in these shops on my way to Bujagali? How will this affect their business?
The people you talk about will benefit from affordable power. Bujagali will supplant the entire thermal sort of emergency rental generation and therefore reduce the cost of power, which affects even that small consumer that you came across. Secondly, from a manufacturing base, this project will be huge in reducing the cost of production and therefore making Ugandan goods competitive and therefore promote manufacturing and job creation, and in the process ensure that many of the people you talk about will be able to have or to fend for their families.
Now, projects like this always have a major environmental impact. Has that been taken into account in this construction project?
This project has adhered to the highest standards on environmental and social impact assessment. And in terms of its size, the impact, in my view, compared to the number of megawatts that are being generated, has been minimal. Because this is 250 megawatts, the total land that will be inundated is only 80 hectares, and the number of people who have been sort of affected by the project is only about 2,600. So in terms of the total environmental assessment, it's in my view, is minimal. What we have done is that we've gone out of our way to ensure that everybody who's affected by the project is left better off than they were before the project.
Now, just about anywhere you go in Africa, one thing that is not in short supply is sunshine. And as a source of power, it is clean, it is green, it's efficient. I went to the village of Kapuka in Malawi to see how the people there are harnessing the power of the sun for rural electrification. Take a look at that amazing landscape. Now, this is why I love coming to Africa. Now, they often say a thing of beauty is a joy forever, but in this case, a thing of beauty provides challenges as well. I'm in the village of Kapuka. I'm just 56 kilometers away from the capital, Lilongwe. However, Kapuka is not connected to the national electricity grid. So for people in communities like this to become part of that global network, solar power is the only real alternative. Now, I want you to come with me. I'm going to take you around Kapuka and show you how solar power is changing people's lives here. Now, this is all that is needed to transform lives in villages like Kapuka and create the next generation of entrepreneurs. There's a simple solar panel connected by this wire into this building. Now, come with me. Let me show you how it works. Now, this little contraption right here is a mobile phone charging business. Now, because Kapuka is not connected to the national electricity grid, people can't charge their phones and stay connected with their friends and family. So you have someone here who sets up this little contraption connected to that solar power panel that I showed you just a moment ago, and they charge people a small fee to charge their phones so they can make phone calls. This is how it works. As you can see, this is the local barber shop, again with a buzzer charged up by solar power. My man Lamek is in there giving folks haircuts. Lamek, how much for a haircut?
50.
50 kwacha. That's something like 35 cents. Not a bad deal if you ask me. Now, this here is the local cinema. Now, the formula, again, is quite simple. You have a solar panel on the roof. They've gotten their own satellite dish, and they can watch the news, find out what's going on in the rest of the world, and of course, enjoy a bit of entertainment as well. Okay, I'm going to speak to the person who's in charge of making this whole operation run smoothly. Hilda, thanks for being with us on Africa Business Report. Tell me, first of all, how has solar power changed the lives of people in Kapuka?
The solar power has changed the people of Kapuka. Mainly, they are now seeing everything easy. Women are pounding even at night.
They're able to cook at night?
Yes, they cook at night. And if the rains come, even they use the mobile lanterns to plant their tobacco.
Oh, they can charge up lanterns,
yes,
and go where they need to go.
Yes, yes.
And I just came from the cinema, the entertainment center. Do you now feel that Kapuka is now part of the rest of the world because you can see what's happening in the Longwe, in West Africa, and in Europe even?
Of course, yes. Now our children, before the past years, they were used to go in town. They say, there in town we enjoy.
Yeah.
We see cinemas, we see films of people fighting, we see...
action movies.
Yes. Now they can use this.
Now that's the story in Malawi. Let's go further north now to Ethiopia. They're getting into the clean energy race as well, with plans to develop a biofuel car. My colleague Egon Kosu has been to Addis Ababa to find out more.
Most of these cars are imports. They assault the ear, the nose, and of course, the environment. And because they're brought in from overseas at great expense, they're also an assault on the economy. Well, the company behind this car thinks it's able to solve both problems. It intends to start making the Abai car right here in Ethiopia. That would help boost the anemic manufacturing sector, but the benefits don't stop there. The car also runs on gas produced by organic waste, and so cuts down on pollution. Now, I've just driven in here powered by biogas, and to switch to petrol it's a pretty simple matter. You press that button and you're now ready to roll on conventional fuel. What there isn't, though, is a button to ensure a readily available supply of cheap investment cash. The really conservative nature of financing here means that that cash is pretty hard to come by, and that could act as a brake on development. It's hard for this and other Ethiopian firms to get hold of foreign cash. Overseas banks aren't allowed to operate here.
Here is a tank we are using to put biogas in the system.
The man behind the car is Tadesse Tessema, a recent returnee from the Netherlands. He says going to local banks isn't necessarily the answer.
Most of them, local banks, are giving money for operational costs, not initial investment. And most of them are short-term loans, talking about 3-4 years. You have to pay everything back.
But despite this, the company is determined to press ahead with developing manufacturing muscle, adding new buildings and new equipment.
Currently, we are importing almost all goods from outside. And the foreign currency, which is, we have some foreign currency problem. And by manufacturing locally, we can save foreign currency, and also we will be able to create more jobs and also to bring new technology to Ethiopia, and also being possible to export to foreign countries.
So the company isn't going to make just cars. It's going to be churning out another product designed to tackle chronic traffic, a so-called city bus designed to take on the rigours of Addis and other African cities. And it too will be a green machine. Once this thing is built, it'll carry up to 200 passengers, and the engine which will go there will eventually run on biogas. But the ambitions don't end there. There are plans to export this bus to other parts of Africa.
What we're doing is we're constructing a prototype.
The company will produce its own biogas to run both the bus and the car. Will it be able to keep up with demand, though?
We need about 40,000 tons of high-quality solid waste per year. Now, as we've discussed with the Addis Ababa solid waste authorities, currently the generation of solid waste in Addis Ababa is about 200,000 tons per year. So by using only a quarter of the waste that's available, we can meet our target of generating enough fuel for those 2,000 cars.
What happens after that, though? Surely you're not going to cut off at 2,000 cars?
Well, the economics are such that the capital investment is high. So we want to start with that goal, make sure that everything is as we expect, and then certainly there's great potential for expansion.
I mean, ideally, we'd like to use all of the solid waste to generate fuel because it's a much more positive outcome than putting it in a landfill or a dump.
As things stand, the green revolution is a long way from sparking an industrial revolution here. But it's clear that as the country drives towards greater self-sufficiency, manufacturing will play an increasingly important role.
And that's how we wrap up this edition of Africa Business Report, a special program looking back at the big energy stories we've covered on the program. If you want to find out a bit more, visit our website. It's bbc.com/Africa Business Report, and join us on Facebook as well. Until next time, when we bring you another edition of the program, I'm Komla Dumont. Goodbye.